You just heard David Cameron discussing the potential for more deals with India. And it kind of reminds us of last year, Modi, the candidate, the one who pledged he would put toilets before temples, development before religious and sectarian differences. What are your thoughts when you listen to the British Prime Minister?
Well, I think a feeling of sadness because, you know, I covered that election and it was a very hopeful election. And even more than what Modi said, the people of India really invested him with that feeling that let's not have this kind of this religious Hindu chauvinistic thing. And we're electing you because we think you can bring development. People would often say to me in Benares, we're not voting for the BJP, we're voting for this man, Narendra Modi. And actually, in the last 18 months, we've seen a terrible betrayal of that mandate. We've seen the religious stuff, on one hand, go completely out of hand, uglier and uglier rhetoric in the public sphere, and the economy sort of only just puttering along. So he comes very much, I feel, a kind of defeated figure, not just electorally, but morally, and a betrayal of the mandate very much so.
But the inflammatory rhetoric has not come from him per se.
It hasn't, but we always knew that a lunatic fringe would be emboldened when he became prime minister, and it was really incumbent upon him to speak very firmly to those people. I think he did speak firmly to them, but I have a feeling only behind closed doors. And of course, the worst incident, the kind of turning point, in my opinion, was the lynching of this man in September, a Muslim man, over the suspicion of killing a cow and eating beef. And at that point, you really needed the prime minister to come out and let the country know that this was not on, that this was not what the BJP was in power for, that he disapproved of it, that he thought it was out. And he responded with a silence that was so shameful that it left many people who would ordinarily have supported him very unsure of what it meant for this man to be in power.
Now, you're in New York, where a year ago Narendra Modi wooed the Indian diaspora with a rally at Madison Square Garden. On Friday, he's going to fill more than 70,000 seats at Wembley Stadium. He's going to fill that stadium once again, and he probably will again get a rapturous welcome. Would you say that there's a growing polarization between Indians and many who disagree with your views on things?
I know, but those people in Wembley are not the electorate. I mean, we could have said that I'm part of some kind of isolated intellectual elite. And by the way, I certainly don't consider myself part of the old ideological left who would always have opposed Narendra Modi. I feel very much that I've had a kind of journey of disillusionment in a sense. But the people of Bihar are the electorate. Bihar is one of the most representative states in the country. And so if Bihar is pissed off, it doesn't matter what Wembley thinks or what Madison Park Gardens thinks. Those are not the people that could bring him back into power.
And by the way, there's been a letter sent out by 4 BJP grandees after that defeat in Bihar. Is that going to act as a wake-up call to Narendra Modi?
I think that of all the protests, that's probably the least significant. I mean, those 4 grandees are people who've kind of had it in for Mr. Modi since long before he got elected, and they themselves could never have won without him. So I think that that's really like a kind of more like just internal political malice. What's much more important, of course, is the civilian movement in India.
Now, you wrote in a piece recently in the New York Times, Aatish TASEER, and I'll quote you, "A new country is seething with life, but not all vitality is pretty, and there now exists a glaring cultural and intellectual gap between India's old entrenched elite and the emerging electorate." So you make it sound as though there's more democracy in a way, but that it's kind of ugly at times.
Well, you know, this is, and if you study Erdogan or if you study Sri Lanka, this is the movement this is what is happening in former colonial democracies everywhere, where they're, you know, the India I grew up in was ruled by a bunch of kind of Oxonian, sort of left-wing intellectuals, very much in the mold of Mr. Nehru, that India could never have survived. So one of the reasons that I was excited by the election last year was that it did represent, it was a kind of class revolution at the ballot box. And that if you believe in democracy and if you believe in a certain kind of mobility as being an engine for change and for progress, well, all that is very exciting. But I think that it's very important that a middle class come into a world in which, the middle class itself is equipped to deal with the challenges of the modern world, and where you have a society that's in some ways responding to the aspirations of people. I don't know if that's necessarily true in India. I think it's a very precarious moment in India. And it matters very much how these next few years go. If Mr. Modi is able to contain his lunatic fringe, if he is able to channel the energy of India towards something more positive, the fate of the country hangs on that.
All right, so the jury is still out, you're saying, Aatish TASEER, and it's amazing to think that by 2020, India will have the world's largest middle class.
Right. I mean, I think that I think Bihar is a very severe rebuke. And if Mr. Modi can learn from that, we could be looking at a different 3 or 4 years ahead. But we're almost 18 or 19 months into this government, and it's not looking good. So it's a very precarious situation, I think.
Aatish TASEER, your latest book is called The Way Things Were. Many thanks for speaking with us here on France 24.